Hey, ¿qué pasa, Calexico? Welcome back to the podcast. Before we begin, I want to thank my friends here at Mexica Bar and Mexica, the restaurant. Ernie, thank you for giving me the space today to record. It's a different setting, different time. I normally record in the afternoons. Is a little bit early, but not too early because it's a Friday. Normally record on Saturday, so Fridays are like an anomaly. I'm getting used to the schedule. But my guest today is a current Imperial City Council member, former Imperial mayor. She's now running for IID Division 5. My guest today is Karin Eugenio. Thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And thank you to Ernie and Jessica for allowing us to use this space. And if you haven't been to Mexica Brewery yet, their food is amazing. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I've never. It's my first time here at the bar. I've had their pizza, and their food's amazing. Their beer's really good too. They make it here. It's really just a very hidden local gem. So. Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Before we get into politics and your campaign and everything, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I grew up here in Imperial Valley, born and raised in El Centro. I lived here until I was 18, graduated from Central Union. I moved away when I was 18 to San Diego, attended Cal State San Marcos, got a degree in literature and writing, then went to San Diego State and attained a master's in rhetoric and writing. I'm currently studying in a PhD program in educational studies. It's a joint doctoral program between Claremont Graduate University and San Diego State. I've been teaching at IVC since 2010, teaching at San Diego State Calexico since 2017. I was elected to the Imperial City Council in 2018. Last year, I'm the immediate past mayor of the city of Imperial. I'm currently still serving on the Imperial City Council. This is my last year. And I think that's it.
So what made you decide to go into politics?
I've always been politically inclined. I remember the first thing that I was super excited about when I turned 18 was that I had the ability to vote. So I've always been very engaged in that realm. But it really took a big turn for me when I moved to San Francisco after having lived in San Diego for about 14 years. My first job in San Francisco was I was working for Aaron Peskin, who's a board supervisor, and I worked on his re-election campaign. And I was just very impressed by how engaged people were, and not just in San Francisco, but in Northern California. Like we always had an abundance of volunteers. People were very, very active, and it wasn't something I grew up seeing here. And so it's just something that I wanted to bring with me when I returned to Southern California.
Speaking of involvement, I'm from Calexico. Do you feel that Imperial is, the community there's a little bit more involved when it comes to politics? Because I know in Calexico we always have like a low voter turnout. Do you feel like Imperial is a little bit more involved when it comes to it?
Yes, Imperial is a very active and very vocal population. And it's as we were saying before the interview, Imperial is kind of an anomaly. We have a really good population of professionals and a lot of law enforcement. And we moved back to Imperial County in 2015 when my daughter was initially a few months after she was born. And, Imperial just was the natural move for us. That's where my former husband was from. And it's just it's always been at least in the top 5 or 10 of the safest cities in California. So it's safe. People are very engaged. People take a lot of pride in their community in Imperial, and it's what makes me love living there, raising my daughter there, and having served there. Yeah,
I think that Imperial is a place that we've been thinking of maybe moving in the future.
You should.
But when it comes to their politics, yes. It seems that it's always kept in house. Calexico is always in the Ivy Press, whether it's their school board or the city council. But Imperial is one of the cities that, in the last 10, 15 years has grown a lot. There's a lot of construction still going on. But yet it feels that, their politics, the city council has always been, I guess they keep their issues in-house and not make it seem.
Yeah. We're very protective of one another in Imperial as a council. We have a lot of pride for our city. And so I think that's reflected in obviously what you've seen. We do have someone that comes to all of our council members from Calexico Chronicle, and so I feel like that's kind of where we get the most publicity from. Richard Brown from the Calexico Chronicle and the Holtville Tribune is just amazing. So we're always like very satisfied with what he produces, and when we do share what we're doing, that's traditionally where it goes.
Yeah. You're running for Division 5 for the IID.
Yes.
I feel that division, how it's mapped out is kind of... Do you feel that it's a little bit weird the way it's mapped out? Because, you get like a little bit part of Calexico,
right,
and then Holtville, and then
right,
a part of Imperial.
Yeah, it's all of Imperial, which is great for me because I love the city of Imperial. And just to go back to what you said before, we are one of the fastest growing cities in the state of California. And with the redistricting, there were some changes. I believe it was all of Imperial before and all of Holtville. Now it's still all of Imperial with just a third of Holtville and a tiny sliver of kind of the northeastern end of Calexico. So it is a little strange of a division, but I'm happy with it.
Do you feel that, you have an advantage there, like having all of Imperial part of the district?
I think so. I was fortunate enough when I ran in 2018 to have come in first in my election. There were some campaign promises that I made that I feel like I've upheld. My biggest platform was beautification in parks, and we've been able to, in the last almost 4 years, completely restructure our parks department. We created a nonprofit, which I sit on the board of, for our parks department. We've got a lot of new projects happening within our parks, exercise equipment, just, shades going up, new play structures. We also we're in the process of renovating Highway 86. We just attained several $1 million in funds for that complete transformation, which we now own from Caltrans. And then for me, my biggest, thing that I'm proud of and accomplishment was what I was able to work on last year as mayor, which is the negotiation and the sale of what we coined in 2018 the notorious ghost hotel. So that is the whole north end of Imperial, but especially with the creation of now the transformation of this hotel is just going to be completely different. So it's going to have a bar, a restaurant. We have that new McDonald's and Starbucks that McDonald's just opened. Starbucks will open soon, but
I think that was one of the most, I guess, in the last year, controversial things.
It is. That was the sale of that property happened before I joined the board in 2018, and then once it's sold, we don't, as long as they fit, as long as the purchasers build within their zoning abilities or capabilities, then they can put in whatever they want. And so that is controversial. The traffic and the issues that arise from the middle school and now the new post office, McDonald's and Starbucks has been controversial. I get it. I've seen the traffic, but we are working very closely with the school board and our police department to help, mitigate those issues.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, like these last couple of years, that's like one of the few things that I've heard out of Imperial.
Yes.
People that were a little bit mad.
Yeah, people are very actively dissatisfied with that whole traffic situation, and I get it, and we are working on it.
Mm-hmm. And now, what made you decide to run for, after almost completing your first term as a city council member for Imperial? Mm-hmm. What made you decide to run for IID?
Honestly, I have loved my time on council. I've had a great relationship with my fellow council members and my staff, and I've really loved what I've been doing. I tend to not do the same thing twice, and IID just seemed like the natural progression for me. It allows me to continue what I'm doing within my community, but with a further reach. I, like so many others, have been watching the IID closely in the last several years, and what I've seen is disturbing. The infighting and the disrespect for some of the board members towards one another has just been alarming. And as someone like myself, on my father's side, I come from a legacy of farmers, people very deep-seated in the agricultural industry. My father came here to farm from India when he was 17 years old. And so if it weren't for his farming efforts, I would not, be here. My brother Paul was also a farmer. His kids study agriculture. My sister Jane, she went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Her husband also went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. So it's part of who I am, and it's just something I felt very passionate and compelled to do.
I was thinking the other day about with all the politics going on right now. Mm-hmm. Like all these politics, like whether it's city council or the county school boards, it's like a ecosystem of politics here in the valley, right?
Yes.
So where would you place, if you would have to rank them, where would you place the IID as the importance?
I mean, I would say IID is arguably, the most important entity in the Imperial County. Without water and power, we couldn't exist. And so the rights that we have traditionally had to water, are consistently under threat. And the more infighting that occurs, the more vulnerable we are to outside entities. And it's important that we work really hard, to put it lightly, to preserve those rights and to preserve that and to continue and ensure that our biggest industry, the agricultural industry, is preserved, and that the entitlements we have had are continued to be protected and preserved.
Do you feel that there's a way to kind of have like a happy medium where everybody, farmers are happy in terms of, how much they're getting off from the water, or like, how much profit they're making,
mm-hmm.
and the residents, happy with, their rates and the
right.
water rates. Do you think there's a way we can achieve that?
Definitely. I think that, especially with my opponent, there's been, she's had kind of a, how do I put this? It seems like, I don't know, a distrust or an anger towards a lot of our farmers. And I don't think it has to be that way. I don't think it has to be one or the other. It's not the IID against agriculture. Agriculture is, one of it's made us who we are. Without it, who would we be? And, but as ratepayers, for the average person like you and I, the most important thing about that IID, about that entity, is our bills, what we see monthly. And so it's important to, have a board that fights for those lower energy rates that we've continually had, to make sure that we continue to have those rates, but also preserve the industry that has put us on the map, that makes us so valuable to the rest of the country. It's not us against them, and farmers having, having a brother who's in the agriculture industry, it's a hard industry. Some seasons you don't make any money. Sometimes it's a huge loss, and it's always a gamble. And this gamble is taken for the benefit of everyone in our country, to ensure that we all have food and produce and sustenance. And so, it's a hard job. We shouldn't make it harder.
Do you feel that, it would be fair for them to, when they have a bad season, to sell some of their water, or, is it, do you feel strongly about keeping it here?
Personally, I feel strongly about keeping the water here. I feel like our water rights are our most valuable asset for our own ability to survive, and for our farmers to be able to continue to farm. So it's important for me to keep our rates low and to keep our water here.
You talk about the division within the board. Do you feel that that's always a bad thing, or there's
That's a good question. We aren't elected to agree on everything. We all come from different backgrounds. We all have different opinions. That's one of the things that I valued the most about my council is that we're all entirely different. I'm an educator. One of my other fellow council members is, a scientist or a biologist. The other is, a business owner. One of the other, two of them are business owners. And the other one works for the IID. We all come from very different places, politically, religiously, personally, and we're elected to bring those different opinions and values to that council. But one thing that we've never done is we've never brought those differences publicly. Like, we have had disagreements publicly as far as like not all of us vote the same on particular issues, but we've never reduced ourselves to name calling or just, we've never been disrespectful to one another. And I think that's important. It's important to stick to our priorities, and it's important to stick to our values. But I don't think it's conducive to, to helping our community to engage in behavior that's just alarming or disturbing or disrespectful.
If elected, what do you think you bring to the board that will make it better for, like you said, not only farmers, but, the normal resident in the Imperial?
Yes. I mean, I'm coming, just like I've come to my council, from my perspective, I'd be coming to the district with my perspective as a mother, first and foremost. The reason I ran for council is because my greatest job and responsibility is being a mother to my 7-year-old daughter. And everything that I do is to establish a proper, to be a proper role model to her, to show her that we as women, as mothers, can do anything we set our hearts to. So I would be bringing that perspective as a mother, as an educator. I've worked in education my entire adult life. I've taught every grade, pretty much from kindergarten to college. And I also, I've owned a small business. I owned a coffee shop for a few years. And so, but mostly I think my most valuable asset and trait that I can bring to the district is my ability to, treat others fairly and to be open to other people's perspectives.
Hey guys, sorry for the interruption, but I want to take a minute and thank today's sponsors. I want to thank my friends Camilo Garcia, Jake, Eddie Lopez from Roots Creative, Ms. Norma Galindo, IID Director representing Division 5 and serving the entire Imperial Valley, Valley Sports Network, the source for Imperial Valley sports. I want to thank my friends Sergio's Tacos and Hotdogs, with 8 years of experience serving the Imperial Valley, San Diego, and Yuma counties with Mexicali-style hot dogs and taquizas. Contact Sergio at 760-562-0057 or look for Sergio's Tacos and Hotdogs on Facebook. I want to thank Eric Reyes from Los Amigos de la Comunidad, empowering communities together. Finally, I want to thank David Gastelum. If you're thinking of buying or selling a home in the Imperial or San Diego counties, make sure you contact David. He's not only a realtor, but an investor with over 20 years of experience, and he'll teach you along the way one of the most important investments of your life. All right, well, let's get back to the interview. What have you done, or what have you learned from being in the city council that you think you could bring to the board, to the IID board? Because I mean, it's like you mentioned, I think the IID board is one of the, if not the best, the most important board that we have here in the valley. You would be, I mean, in city council, you're dealing with local, small town issues. But now when you go to the IID, you're dealing with, water rights, people in Sacramento or even Colorado or, all around the Colorado River, you're going to be dealing with people that are trying to get our water. So, what do you think you've experienced as a city council member that help you prepare for this issue?
Well, definitely, I've learned how to be a public servant. It's not an easy job, and you have to have very tough skin. I've learned that in a very hard way. But first and foremost, remembering who I work for. And for me, it's I don't work for staff. I work for my constituents, and always being able to be open-minded and available for people who have issues. The IID obviously is, has a much larger reach than a city council does. But learning to work in a leadership position, to remember to stay true to my values, to what I bring to the table, learning to use diplomacy amongst, my fellow council members, and in this context would be fellow directors or board members. So all of those things, remembering first and foremost who I work for, and to not take things personally.
Because when you say who you work for, it's your constituents, which is Division 5. But
right.
At the end of the day, like, some of the decisions you make impact the whole Imperial Valley.
Yes, exactly.
So it's a tough road to take.
It is.
So you mentioned that when you went into city council, you had a couple of things that you wanted to tackle. Mm-hmm. If you're elected, what's some of the things that you really want to focus on and make sure that are changed?
Yeah. My biggest priorities, as I mentioned before, are just ensuring that we continue to keep our rates low, ensuring to keep our water here, making sure that I'm engaged and active. I'm not going to, I'm not here to make any promises about what I'm going to, things I'm going to fulfill. But what I can promise is that I will read every agenda very diligently, that I will do my research, that I will represent the Imperial Valley and this board very well, and that I will fight hard to make sure that everything I do is within the best interest of the Imperial Valley.
Okay. If you would have to give like a elevator pitch, what would it be? If you're meeting somebody somewhere and they ask you, "Oh, you're running for IID," but you have like 2 minutes to tell them, what would you?
That's a good question. It's kind of a combination of everything I've already said, in that I'm very loyal to being a public servant. It's something that I truly enjoy, and not a lot of people do. Being a public person is a difficult thing. Like I said, you have to have tough skin. You have to be passionate about it, and it's not something that you can take lightly. So again, as a mother, as an educator, as a former small business owner, my promises are just to work hard, to take it seriously, to make sure that I'm research informed and that I do my due diligence, and to make sure that that I don't discontinue doing what I'm already doing. Like I said, as a council member, I was able to fulfill a lot of things that I hope to do, which was improve our parks, improve our Highway 86, just make this a place that has a stronger quality of life, a better quality of life. Some of the issues that exist here are our air quality, our asthma rates, and things like improving our parks or improving our community, or making sure that our water is affordable and clean and healthy. All of those things are of utmost importance to me.
What is your take on the whole lithium thing? They recently, I think it was this week, that they approved to move forward.
It's exciting. There's a lot of dialogue and conversations about lithium and what its capabilities are within the Imperial County. And I'm very hopeful that it will bring us, a better quality of life, that it will bring us much needed tax dollars for our community. We're an underserved community. I grew up here, and for me as an educator, my priority has always been to make sure that people know what it means to live in an underserved community, and to know what it means as a public leader to be able to serve our community better, right? And so lithium, for me and for a lot of people, symbolizes hope and optimism. And, again, just a better quality of life for our constituents.
Yeah. But I think that's something that always kind of is not, when I've talked to a couple of people that are, whether it's a county or ID, and we mentioned lithium, and how it's going to bring jobs and tax money, but something that hardly ever gets mentioned is the environmental impact.
Right.
How is it going to affect us? How are we going to make sure that, you know, some of the things that they do aren't going to affect us in the long run?
Right.
How is that important to you? Like,
it's important for me to make sure that that the wealth actually affects our county, right? We've seen instances before where people have come in and made a lot of money at our expense, and that money hasn't been recirculated back into our community. And you can see that in the reflection of the state of so many things within our county. And so it's important for me, and it's a priority for me, to make sure that the people who live here are the ones who benefit from this lithium extraction, right? We are in a position right now to make our community better, to share that wealth, and I want to do everything within my power to make sure that that happens.
Okay. Where can people follow your campaign? Do you have a website?
I do.
Media?
I have a Facebook page. It's Karin Eugenio for IID Division 5. So I have that. I think we just opened an Instagram page. So Facebook, Instagram. And we just released a new commercial yesterday that will be available on YouTube as well.
Okay. Anything else that you want to add that I didn't, ask you or talked about?
Yeah. I mean, you asked some pretty good questions, so I think I'm pretty good. But just that, I guess, there have been some allegations, like in the last podcast here, that am maybe working for certain people or special interests, and I'm my own person. I've worked hard my whole life to be an educator. Like I said, I'm studying in a PhD program. I am capable of thinking, for myself. And so, again, I'm a mother, I'm a public servant, I'm an educator. And, if anyone has any questions for me about why I'm running, what I feel like I can bring to this board, reach out to me in whatever capacity, and know that, I work for no one. I serve no one other than my constituents.
Yeah. I think, that often gets thrown, like, with anybody that's running, like, oh yeah, he's so and so's.
Yeah, I believe the exact words were cute little articulate Chicanos, doing the dirty work for farmers. I mean, I've been called a lot worse than cute and articulate, so I'll take it, but it's completely inaccurate.
So are you already used to the, everything that goes around with, running a campaign, like these sorts of things?
Yeah. I mean, there are some unpleasantries to running a campaign. I've been very fortunate in that I've had a very supportive group of people within Imperial that have just, been wonderful to serve. And, there's always people who are angry, and I get that. There are people who want things done and want changes done, and I've taken those. Initially there's a little bit of like, oh, if only you could ask that in a little bit of a nicer way. I feel like I have a very tough skin, but I'm also like sensitive at times. But every time that's happened, if I've been challenged on, like, why does this park look this way, or what are you doing about this, I take it as as extra motivation. People should be angry. People should be dissatisfied with things that don't look good or aren't working. And so I would rather people be vocal about what isn't working than to stay silent. So I appreciate people's feedback in whatever form that may be. If it leads to something constructive, that's fine.
Yeah, I think that's one of the, because I've thought about running for city council and stuff like that, but I think I'm better now. Before, I used to get on on Facebook and fight with people, but now like I've learned to I give credit to my wife, because she's the one like almost taking my phone away to not do it, because it, I mean, and I get it. Some people are passionate and they have their own opinions. And I have my own opinions, and I mean, it's just my passion, for whatever I believe in.
Right.
And yeah, it's hard to not go into that back and forth with people that sometimes, they do have a good point and sometimes they don't. They're just...
Right. Yeah, I mean, we're all coming from different places. Sometimes we have bad days. Sometimes a lot of us are going through things. And so learning to not take things personally and know that, there's only so much you can do. And if someone is interested in having a constructive conversation, then you can have that. And sometimes it's just not. Sometimes it's just a reflection of how they're feeling, and learning how to decipher those two and to let things that shouldn't stay with you, not stay with you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it. Like I said, it's kind of early on a Friday, Good Friday, and you have your social media guy over here.
One of my former students here helping me with my social media. He was very gracious enough to volunteer. So.
Yeah. So thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate it. Thank you for reaching out. You reached out and asked to be on. Like I said, anybody else that's running for any elected position, you want to come on, you're more than welcome. Just, make sure you email me or send me a message, but I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But once again, I want to thank Ernie and Mexica Brewing and the bar for allowing us today to record here today. And thank you guys for listening or watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.